Thanks for tuning in to No Wine in No Time. I'm your host Dave, and today we're going to talk about a green skin white wine grape by the name of Friulano. So Friulano is native to northern Italy, and much like so many regional Italian varietals, there's a little bit of confusion when they travel to other parts of the world. Now Friulano, we feel, was probably native to the northern wine growing region of Veneto, but very quickly traveled over to Friuli, so just a little bit over to the west. And we look at the wine growing region of Friuli. It's very far in the north. It actually borders Austria on its northern border, the Adriatic Sea on its southern border, and it has the very jagged Dolomite Mountains traveling through it. Now when we look at Friuli, for years and years, from the 1600s all the way up to 1993, we called this grape Tokai Friulano. So Tokai, for those of you that are wine aficionados, you may think of that as a Hungarian wine, and we're going to get back to that here in just a few minutes. But we talk about the confusion of these regional varietals. When we look at Friulano, you might see it called Sauvignonese, you might see it called Sauvignon Vert, or by its traditional name as that Tokai Friulano. Now, let's get into the confusion. So in Hungary, you might see Tokai as a very epic dessert wine that also can be fermented to be dry. Now it has a tremendous lineage, and if you've been following No Wine in No Time, we actually have a video on Tokai, so you might want to check that out. But the Tokai Friulano from the 1600s all the way to 1993 was used in Friuli to describe the wine made from this grape. Now why is 1993 so important? Well, Hungary petitioned the European Union and said, listen, we've earned the reputation to have our wine called Tokai. This is just confusing people because it's not even closely similar. And they're correct. This is a completely different grape that makes a completely different wine. So in 1993, the European Union stepped in and said, you can no longer label these wines as Tokai Friulano, just Friulano. So that's what we see on this wine bottle, and that's what you'll see moving forward. Now the Friulano grape, it's a late budding and late ripening grape. Now why is that important? When we think about northern Italian areas, because they're in the north, a late budding varietal is very important because we get frost later into the spring. So when a vine buds later, then it has a better chance of producing fruit and of course surviving. Friulano also is extremely vigorous. In other words, it produces a lot of vegetation and a lot of fruit. So a lot of the canopy management, dry harvesting needs to be done in the vineyard to ensure a good product in the glass. But the most important thing for Friulano grapes is when it is harvested by the people in the vineyard and given on to the winemaker. What I mean by that, if we harvest Friulano too early, we now have a very vegetal type of wine that's lean, tart, and really absent of flavor. If we pick it too late, now we have a highly sugared version of Friulano, which in itself isn't bad. You can ferment it to be extremely dry, but it leads to very high alcohol contents, and you can actually see Friulanos up in the 14 and 14.5% range. So it's somewhere in the middle that magic happens. So when we think of Friulano and what it's going to present like in our glass, I'll give you this very good example of it. Now this comes to us from a winemaker by the name of Zorzedic, and you may say, well, Zorzedic, that doesn't sound Italian at all. Remember, the northern border of Friuli is Austria, and a lot of the Austrians have made their way into that region of Italy. So Zorzedig is the producer, and this is one of their Friulanos. So when we take a look at it in the glass, the first thing that we see is it's very light in color, maybe just barely bordering on straw yellow. If we swirl to liberate the aromas, what jumps out of the glass is somewhere between peach and apricot, with just a little bit of savory spices bordering on almond. Let's go ahead and give it a sip and see what we think. It's really a beautiful version of Friulano. So when it rolls across the palate, in the front side, we get a little bit of, let's say, pink grapefruit flavors. Then it kind of fades to a little bit of pear, maybe some white peach, really beautiful summer flavors. But then we start to feel a little bit of spiciness. I'm getting a little aftertaste of, let's say, tarragon. And I also feel just a little bit of kind of an almondy type of flavor. There's a higher glycerin content in Friulano, so you'll feel a more oily presence on your tongue, and that leads to a little bit more body in a white wine. So when we have Friulano in the glass and we're looking to find a pairing, what exactly would we pair Friulano with? So I love it with any type of grilled green vegetables. So we really have some challenging pairings when we think about things like artichokes and cabbage and Brussels sprouts, things of that nature. Whether they're roasted in the oven or grilled on the grill, it can be a challenging pairing. Friulano pairs very beautifully with these type of roasted or grilled vegetables. So I like it a little bit more with the vegetable side of things and a little less with meat, but you give it a try, experiment. It would work very well with, let's say, fish or maybe even some roasted chicken. So that's all the time we have for today. I'm going to get back and enjoy a little bit more of this Friulano, and I ask you to tune in next time, because soon you'll know wine in no time.